Hello, I'm Amanda Donald, and this is the presentation of my research project titled The Effect of Smart Goal Setting on Struggling Readers and Fluency in the Middle Grades. I am a middle school reading teacher. I work at a small school district in Southeast Iowa. Being the reading teacher, I'm constantly focusing on data in regards to reading proficiency and working towards getting students proficient in reading. We've implemented a literacy intervention that I work with 7th and 8th grade students twice a day for 25 minutes. We began this because in the school district where the study occurred, the goal in the 15-16 school year was that 100% of our student population grades 7 through 12 would show at least 1 year's growth in reading. However, out of 212 of those students, only 110 made 1 year's growth in reading. Therefore, I started looking into this problem and trying to figure out which intervention, research-based intervention, would, if I implemented it, would help the most and allow those readers to become proficient. As I stated, the problem is that students are scoring below proficiency on reading assessments, and students who fall behind in reading have a very hard time catching up to their peers who are scoring at grade level, especially at the secondary level, where students are going to have content area vocabulary that is much more difficult than what they had at the elementary level. Once I figured out my problem, I started looking into previous studies. So as I reviewed the literature, I realized that the study was very important because the students who are performing below proficiency need to receive intense reading interventions that are research-based to become successful. The history of this problem, in fact, in 2011, it was stated in the National Assessment of Educational Progress that 8th grade reading scores averaged only 1 point higher in 2009. So this has been going on, those students not being proficient on reading assessments for quite a while. Reading fluency is a critical skill in grasping meaning from text. So I looked into literature that focused on reading fluency, and I tried to find things at the middle grades in 7th and 8th grade or middle school, and I found some gaps in that research. Fluency, simply stated, is when a student or when a person can read with proper expression, with accuracy, and it has a nice flow to what they read. This is important because if students spend too much time on decoding words while they're reading, they can't focus on being able to comprehend what it is they're reading. The first study I looked at was a study in 2001. The intervention was, the participants were 3rd and 5th grade students. It worked on phoneme sequencing. And the results of this study were that the students did show a slight increase in reading fluency, but was not significant enough to have fulfilled or said that their hypothesis was accurate. So noting that this wasn't, again, with middle school students, I continued my research. And the second study I found that dealt with fluency as well was Moore and Stacy in 2006. Their participant was an 8-year-old female student that had shown had continued to struggle with reading over time, had different interventions, and they weren't, the participant wasn't showing growth at that point. So they started with modeling with practice. They used different interventions as well. It was multiple ones, but the main one was modeling with practice. And this participant with the modeling with practice did show some results within her reading fluency. She did show growth. However, note that it was an 8-year-old female student again, and this is elementary age, not middle school aged. In 2014, I read some research about video self-modeling and video peer modeling. So the self-modeling is when the participant would, they would record the participants reading and they would go over what they'd done, and then video peer modeling, where the participants would watch other students who had appropriate fluency or were proficient in fluency. Once again, this is 6 elementary students from 3rd to 5th grade that were participants. And note that this was reading instruction through the special education classroom, not the general education classroom. The results showed that there was, once again, an increase in words correct per minute for fluency. And the researchers, however, were unsure if this was because the students gained in their own self-worth and self-efficacy, or whether it was actually the intervention that had been used. Knowing that I wanted to implement some type of goal setting within my study, I decided to look into a couple of different studies on goal setting. And the first one I found was from 2010. It dealt with goal setting, 85 college students who were struggling academically. The researchers used an online goal setting tool, and it was for an intervention. And though it did show that those students who were struggling academically, if they set a goal, whether it be a personal goal or an academic goal, their academics did improve. They showed a significant increase in their academics, whether it was a personal goal they set or an academic goal they set. As I read a little further, the thing that I had really wanted to use was a SMART goal, which is specific, measurable, attainable, and a timely goal. This was out of 2012, the research study was. The participants were a high school management class in which the researchers randomly chose the participants. The participants were given a SMART goals worksheet in which to write their own SMART goals prior to the activity they did in a small group. The results of this, once again, those students that used a SMART goal or filled out a worksheet prior to the activity, they had a significant increase in grade or a higher grade than those that did not use the SMART goals. So after reviewing all of this literature, my research question came up with, would reading fluency and would struggling readers be impacted positively by the implementation of a goal-setting intervention, specifically a SMART goal intervention? My purpose of this study was to determine if the implementation of a SMART goal setting intervention in the middle school classroom would have a positive effect on struggling readers and reading fluency. My hopes for the impact of this study that the participants would increase in fluency, that they would that their fluency and their comprehension and their overall reading would be influenced positively by goal setting, and that if we set some goals early in the school year, that they would impact fluency and comprehension as well, and that I would be able to monitor their progress, the students' progress, not just the participants in the study, but all of the students through progress monitoring. My methodology. My research design was quasi-experimental, this being because prior to the school year, the principal of the school sets the class sizes, and although I was not allowed to select them randomly, things still worked out to intellectually wise that once I studied the baseline, all the students were similar in the two classes. My participants were 7th grade middle school students. I had 2 separate classes, one of 26, one of 27 in my general education classroom. Demographically, as I stated prior, even though I could not randomly select them, demographically was fairly even, which each class had about 56% male and 44% female. So it worked out very well demographically. The materials that were used, I used the basic reading inventory. This was used for progress monitoring. SMART goals worksheets that were implemented within about the 3rd week for the treatment group. I used my laptop that was issued by my school district, an HP Pavilion computer. And to record data, I used the Microsoft Excel worksheet. My procedure, it started at the beginning of my school year, this year, 2016-2017. It lasted about 8 weeks. I had For the first 2 weeks, we had the regular curriculum. Well, all through it, we had the regular curriculum as well as the regular intervention curriculum. And both the control and treatment group within that first 2 weeks had their first biweekly BRI testing, in which we set the baseline. I had a control group as well as a treatment group, as I discussed. And we implemented SMART goals around the third week for the treatment group. We used BRI progress monitoring throughout the entire time. They had 4 BRI progress monitoring within the 8-week time. In the third week, the students in the treatment group were given the SMART goals worksheets in which to set their goals. We worked throughout the week on that, and each BRI testing with the treatment group, we would discuss their goals, whether they'd met the goals, and what we needed to focus on next for them to continue to increase their fluency. The treatment group was the independent variable, and the dependent variable was words correct per minute. My internal validity, the only thing that really struck me as worrisome was that I did not have any control over the assignment of participants. I could not randomly select them. That's why I used the quasi-experimental. I did have a control and a treatment group. I had the baseline for both groups set at the beginning, and I had all of the basic progress monitoring checks when I could make many, many different observations. On the reliability, the BRI assessment is a certified, it is very valid, and I was certified as the teacher. I trained the paraprofessionals. However, I scored all of the assessments. I used BRI progress monitoring for all of my data biweekly, and I used the statistical method of the independent samples t-test, which would compare the average of the 2 independent groups to conclude whether there would be any significant change from baseline to ending data, as well as between the treatment and the control groups. The results of my finding. My hypothesis was that with the implementation of setting SMART goals, that struggling middle school students, struggling readers in the middle school would show improvement in their reading fluency. The evidence was not strong enough to support the hypothesis. There was not a significant change between the 2 groups. This shows the mean pretreatment was 108.5 for the control group, and the ending was 125.8. And the mean words correct per minute pretreatment for the treatment group was 112.7, and for the post-treatment for the treatment group, it was 137 6/10. So there was a slightly larger increase with the treatment group. This is a figure that shows, sometimes it's easier to be able to see those. It does show for the treatment group, it does show right here, it does show that there was a slightly larger increase. The implications for this, explicit fluency instruction, research-based. These are very, very important for students that struggle with reading and struggle with reading fluency. And students must be assessed on their reading fluency on a regular basis. The limitations on this would be, number one, my research design. I believe another research design might have showed more valid results. The length of the study, 8 weeks, is not very long to show an improvement in the reading fluency and in the words correct per minute. The type of goal intervention, a SMART goal might not be the best. Another limitation might be that the paraprofessionals that help me implement the BRI testing progress monitoring might not have been, I may not have worked with them enough for them to be able to implement it with fidelity. And the workspace that I had was interrupted every once in a while as well. So my future recommendations for future research would be to use the experimental research design, have that random selection that makes it makes the internal validity higher. I would increase the amount of the study time. Future studies might look into that. The treatment group was beginning to show an increase in words correct per minute at 8 weeks. And the type of goal setting intervention could be changed. A SMART goal may not be the best one for fluency or to focus on fluency. The individuals that I trained should have been trained more as well. Thank you very much for watching.